Maya's hands trembled as she signed the final page of the marriage contract. The pen felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and each stroke of ink sealed another year of her life away. She glanced up briefly at the man who would become her husband in less than 24 hours, William Blackwood, 58 years old, with a face that showed signs of years of hard living despite his immense wealth. His skin was pale and loose in places, his nose bulbous from years of drinking, and his eyes small and calculating beneath heavy brows. But it wasn't his appearance that made her stomach twist with dread. It was the cold, businesslike way he appraised her, as if she were simply another acquisition for his vast empire. "That's the last page, Miss Johnson," said the lawyer, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who avoided making eye contact with her. "Once you sign here, the arrangement will be complete." Maya took a deep breath and scrawled her signature. At 28 years old, she had just signed away her freedom to save her family. Her father's medical bills had piled up after his stroke, and her mother's small catering business wasn't bringing in enough to cover the costs. Her younger brother's college tuition was due, and their family home was weeks away from foreclosure. When William had approached her father with the proposition marriage to Maya, in exchange for clearing all their debts and setting up a trust fund for her family, they had seen no other option. "Excellent," William said, his voice scratchy from years of cigars. "I'll see you tomorrow at the ceremony, Maya. Be punctual." This was a business transaction to him, nothing more. When he and the lawyer left, Maya collapsed into the nearest chair, tears streaming down her face. Her mother rushed in and wrapped her arms around her. "Oh, baby, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her own eyes wet with tears. "If there was any other way." "It's done now," Maya said, wiping her eyes. "At least Dad will get the treatment he needs, and Jamie can finish college." "But you're sacrificing yourself," her mother said. "That man, he's so much older, and he's not a kind man, Maya." Maya had done her research on William Blackwood. The billionaire had made his fortune in real estate and technology investments, but rumors of ruthless business practices and 2 failed marriages followed him everywhere. She'd heard through the grapevine that he was impotent, a result of diabetes and years of unhealthy living, though no one would say it to his face. Some speculated that's why he wanted a young wife, not for children or physical intimacy, but for the image it would project to his competitors. "I know what I'm getting into, Mom," Maya lied. "It won't be so bad. He's sick. Everyone says he might not even live more than a few years. And he's promised me my own wing in the mansion. I'll barely have to see him." Her mother gripped her hands tightly. "You deserve so much more than this. You deserve love, a real marriage." Maya had once dreamed of love. Before her father's stroke, she'd been working as a children's book illustrator, dating occasionally, believing that someday she would meet someone who would set her soul on fire. Now, she was preparing to walk down the aisle toward a loveless future with a man who viewed her as property. "Love is a luxury we can't afford right now," Maya said firmly, though her heart broke as she spoke the words. "This is the best way to save our family." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat by her bedroom window, looking out at the modest neighborhood where she'd grown up. Tomorrow she would move into William's mansion in the most exclusive part of the city. She would have wealth beyond anything she'd imagined, but she'd be trapped in a gilded cage. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Zoe. "Are you sure about this? It's not too late to back out." Maya typed back, "I'm sure. It's the only way." But she wasn't sure. As dawn broke, casting pink light across her childhood bedroom, Maya felt like she was walking toward her own funeral rather than her wedding day. The ceremony was small and held in William's mansion. Maya wore a simple white dress that William's assistant had selected. There were no bridesmaids, no loving family members from William's side. Only Maya's parents, her brother Jamie, and Zoe were present to witness the cold exchange of vows. William didn't kiss her after they were pronounced husband and wife. He merely nodded, as if concluding a successful negotiation. The reception was equally brief. William's business associates offered polite congratulations, their eyes curious, as they assessed the young black woman who had somehow secured a place as Mrs. Blackwood. Maya heard the whispers, saw the speculative glances. Some looked at her with pity, others with envy, none with genuine happiness. "You'll be staying in the East Wing," William told her after the guests had departed. "Your belongings have already been moved there. Dinner is at 7. Don't be late. I have business calls until then." And just like that, he walked away, leaving Maya standing alone in the vast foyer of what was now technically her home. A house staff member showed her to her room's luxurious suite with a bedroom, sitting area, and private bathroom, all decorated in cold, sterile white and gray. Maya sat on the edge of the enormous bed and finally allowed the tears to fall freely. She had made her choice, signed the papers, spoken the vows. She was now Mrs. William Blackwood, and there was no going back. Later that evening, she dressed for dinner in a simple black dress. When she entered the dining room, William was already seated at the head of a table large enough for 20 people. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to the chair at the opposite end, a good 15 feet away from him. Maya obeyed, her legs shaky. The staff served course after course of exquisite food that she could barely taste. William spoke little, asking only perfunctory questions about whether her rooms were satisfactory and if she had everything she needed. "Yes, thank you," she answered quietly to both questions. "Good. I expect you to maintain a certain image as my wife. My assistant will help you select an appropriate wardrobe and will brief you on social engagements. I travel frequently for business, so you'll often be here alone." He paused to sip his wine. "I should also clarify that this is a marriage in name only. I have no expectations of physical intimacy. I trust that arrangement suits you." Maya nodded, relief washing over her despite the humiliation of discussing such matters so clinically. At least she wouldn't have to share his bed. "Very well. You may go now. I have work to do." Maya returned to her suite, feeling like a prisoner who had just been granted a small reprieve. This would be her life, now lonely but physically safe, trapped but financially secure. Her family would be taken care of, and that's what mattered most. As she prepared for bed, Maya caught her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked like a stranger, beautiful but hollow-eyed, dressed in expensive silk pajamas in a room worth more than her family's entire house. She had made a deal with the devil, and now she would have to live with the consequences. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, "one day at a time." But as she slipped between the cold sheets of her new bed, in this strange house with a husband who didn't want her for anything but appearance's sake, Maya wondered if she had made the biggest mistake of her life. 3 months into her marriage, Maya had settled into a routine that felt more like a performance than a life. She woke each morning in her luxurious but empty bed, had breakfast alone on her private balcony, and spent her days either accompanying William to carefully selected social events or alone in her wing of the mansion. She had access to anything money could buy: designer clothes, expensive jewelry, gourmet food, but the one thing she couldn't purchase was freedom. William was exactly as cold and distant as he had been on their wedding day. They barely spoke beyond what was necessary, and he never showed any interest in knowing her as a person. When they attended social functions together, he would place his hand on the small of her back for photographs, smile stiffly for the cameras, and then immediately distance himself once they were out of the public eye. The tabloids had called their marriage a May-December romance, speculating wildly about what had drawn the young, beautiful black woman to the significantly older, not particularly attractive white billionaire. The kinder publications suggested it was his charm and influence. The crueler ones plainly stated it was his money. None of them knew it was desperation and family loyalty that had led her to the altar. On this particular morning, Maya was sketching in her sitting room when there was a knock at the door. It was Daniels, the house manager, a tall man with silver hair who treated her with polite deference but little warmth. "Mrs. Blackwood, Mr. Blackwood requests your presence at lunch today. He has a guest." Maya looked up in surprise. This was unusual. William rarely invited her to join him for meals unless it was a planned social event on their calendar. "Of course. What time should I be ready?" 12:30. In the main dining room, business casual attire would be appropriate. Maya nodded, and Daniels withdrew. She glanced at her watch. It was already 11. Setting aside her sketchbook, she headed to her closet to find something suitable to wear. She eventually selected a simple but elegant navy blue dress that was conservative enough for a business lunch. At precisely 12:30, Maya entered the dining room to find William seated with a younger man she didn't recognize. Both men stood when she entered. "Ah, Maya," William said, using the polite, almost warm tone he reserved for public appearances. "This is Dr. James Chen, my new personal physician. Dr. Chen, my wife, Maya." The doctor stepped forward to shake her hand. He was perhaps in his early 40s, with kind eyes behind stylish glasses and a gentle smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Blackwood," he said. "Your husband speaks highly of you." Maya doubted that very much, but returned his smile. "Likewise, doctor. I wasn't aware William had changed physicians. Dr. Chen specializes in endocrinology and metabolic disorders," William explained as they sat down. "He's been treating me for the past month." This was news to Maya. William never discussed his health with her, though she knew he had type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure, among other conditions. "Dr. Chen has put me on a new treatment regimen," William continued. "It's showing promising results." "That's wonderful," Maya said, genuinely surprised by this development. William had always been dismissive of doctors' advice in the past, according to his staff. Throughout lunch, Maya observed a different side to William. He seemed almost animated as he discussed his treatment with Dr. Chen, and there was something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Hope, perhaps. Dr. Chen was clearly intelligent but also had a warm bedside manner that seemed to put William at ease. "Mrs. Blackwood, doctor," Chen said as they were finishing dessert, "your husband's new diet and medication plan will require some changes to the household menu. Would it be possible for you to meet with the chef to discuss this?" Before Maya could respond, William interjected. "My wife doesn't handle household matters. Daniels can speak with the chef." Dr. Chen looked momentarily surprised, but recovered quickly. "Of course. I just thought. Well, many of my patients find it helpful when their spouses are involved in their care." "That won't be necessary," William said firmly. "Maya has her own pursuits." Dr. Chen glanced between them, clearly sensing the unusual dynamic. "I understand. Nevertheless, Mrs. Blackwood, if you have any questions about your husband's health management, please don't hesitate to reach out." After lunch, William returned to his office, and Maya was left to walk Dr. Chen to the front door. "Your husband is making good progress, Doctor," Chen said as they walked through the grand hallway. "The new medications are showing positive effects, and if he sticks to the diet and exercise plan, I believe we'll see significant improvements." "I'm glad to hear that," Maya said politely. "William's health has been a concern for some time." Dr. Chen hesitated, then spoke in a lower voice. "Mrs. Blackwood, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but your husband's condition, it affects more than just his physical health. The improvements we're seeing could potentially restore functions that have been diminished." Maya felt her cheeks warm as she realized what the doctor was alluding to. "I see," she managed to say. Sometimes patients don't share all aspects of their treatment with their spouses out of embarrassment, Dr. Chen continued carefully. But support at home can make a tremendous difference. Dr. Chen, Maya said quietly, I appreciate your concern, but my husband and I have an understanding about such matters. The doctor nodded, clearly realizing he had stepped into private territory. Of course, I apologize if I overstepped. After Dr. Chen left, Maya returned to her wing, her mind racing. The implications of what the doctor had said were clear. William's treatments might reverse his impotence. The thought filled her with dread. Their arrangement had been clear from the beginning. A marriage in name only, no physical expectations. If that changed, she tried to calm herself. Even if William's condition improved, it didn't necessarily mean he would expect anything from her. He had never shown any physical interest in her, had never even attempted to kiss her properly. Their relationship was purely transactional. Surely that wouldn't change now. That evening, William summoned her to his study, another unusual occurrence. When she entered, he was standing by the window, looking out at the gardens. Dr. Chen seems optimistic about your health, Maya said, unsure why she had been called. William turned to face her. In the lamplight, she noticed subtle changes in his appearance. He had lost some weight, and there was more color in his face than there had been on their wedding day. Yes, he's quite competent, William replied. Better than that old fool I was seeing before. He paused, studying her face. You look well, Maya. The charity gala next week, have you chosen a dress? Not yet. I was thinking of the blue Versace. Good choice. We'll be hosting a dinner party here the following weekend. 10 couples, our most important business associates and their spouses. I'd like you to oversee the arrangements. Maya couldn't hide her surprise. Me? Not Daniels? You're my wife. It's time you took on some of the responsibilities that come with that title. His tone was matter-of-fact, but there was something different in the way he looked at her, a hint of something almost like approval. Of course, Maya said, still confused by this change. I'll speak with Daniels tomorrow about the preparations. William nodded. Good. And one more thing, I'd like you to move your things to the main suite this weekend. Maya felt as if the floor had dropped out from beneath her. The main suite? But I thought. Our arrangement was necessary due to my health conditions, William said, his voice cool and businesslike. Those conditions are improving. It's time our marriage looked more conventional, at least to the household staff. There will be talk otherwise. Maya struggled to keep her expression neutral. I see. And what exactly are you expecting from this change? William's lips curved in what might have been a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. Nothing you need concern yourself with at present, just the appearance of a normal marriage. We have separate bedrooms within the suite, as you know. Relief washed through her, though she remained wary. Very well, I'll move my essential items this weekend. Good. That will be all for now. As Maya left William's study, her mind was in turmoil. For 3 months, she had been living in a state of suspended animation, going through the motions of being Mrs. William Blackwood while keeping her true self locked away in her private wing. Now, something was shifting. William was changing physically, perhaps even temperamentally, and she didn't know what that meant for their carefully constructed arrangement. Back in her rooms, Maya called her mother. It had been a week since they'd spoken. William was generous with her family but preferred that she limit her contact with them to maintain what he called appropriate boundaries. Something's different, Mom, she said after they'd exchanged greetings. William's seeing a new doctor, and he's changing. He wants me to move to the main suite, to take on more wife duties like hosting dinner parties. Oh, honey, her mother said, concern evident in her voice. Are you okay with that? Is he? He says no, at least not yet. But I don't know what to think. This wasn't part of our arrangement. Maya, if he tries to force you into anything. He won't, Maya interrupted, though she wasn't entirely sure of that herself. William is many things, but he's never been physically intimidating. And I'm not without resources now. The prenup gives me significant assets if the marriage ends. Money isn't everything, baby. Your happiness matters. Maya sighed, looking around at her beautiful prison. I know, Mom. But for now, this is my life. I made this choice for all of us. I'll figure it out. After hanging up, Maya walked to her window and looked out at the sprawling estate grounds. Somewhere out there was the real world, where people fell in and out of love, made mistakes, lived authentically. In here, she was playing a role in William's carefully scripted life. But now it seemed the script was changing, and she wasn't sure what her next lines were supposed to be. As she packed some of her belongings that night, preparing for the move to the main suite, Maya wondered if she would ever feel like more than a beautiful accessory in William's collection. The thought that his improving health might lead to more demands filled her with dread. Yet a small, treacherous part of her was curious about this changing dynamic. Who was William Blackwood beneath the cold exterior? And more importantly, who would Maya become if she remained in this gilded cage? These questions followed her into uneasy dreams, where she was running through endless mansion hallways, searching for an exit that never appeared. The dinner party was in full swing, and Maya was surprised to find herself actually enjoying it. As William had instructed, she had overseen every detail from the menu to the floral arrangements to the seating chart, and the results were impressive. 10 of William's most important business associates and their spouses sat around the elegant dining table, engaged in animated conversation. Maya, seated at the opposite end from William, found herself fielding compliments on everything from the food to the decor. "You have exceptional taste, Mrs. Blackwood," said Martin Reynolds, the CEO of a tech company William was considering investing in. "William never mentioned you had such a talent for entertaining." "Thank you," Maya replied with a polite smile. "It's my first time hosting at this scale." "Well, you're a natural," Martin's wife added. "The old William would never have let anyone else take charge of his precious dinner parties. You must have quite an influence on him." Maya nearly choked on her wine. The idea that she had any influence over William was laughable. Yet, as she glanced down the table at her husband, she noticed he was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. When their eyes met, he raised his glass slightly, in what almost seemed like a gesture of approval. It had been 2 weeks since she'd moved into the main suite, and while they still maintained separate bedrooms, Maya had noticed subtle changes in William. He was losing weight, his color was better, and occasionally, very occasionally, showed flashes of something that might be mistaken for actual human emotion. He had taken to asking her opinion on business matters during breakfast, a meal they now shared regularly in the suite's private dining area. At first, Maya had been hesitant to offer her thoughts, but William seemed genuinely interested in her perspective, particularly on creative matters related to his company's marketing strategies. After the dinner party, when the last guests had departed, Maya expected William to retire immediately, as he usually did. "That went well," he said, loosening his tie slightly. "You impressed Reynolds." "He seemed pleased with everything," Maya agreed, slipping off her high heels with a sigh of relief. Her feet were killing her after hours of playing the perfect hostess. "Not just with the dinner. With you. He thinks you're intelligent." "He's right about that, at least." William poured himself a small measure of scotchless than he would have had months ago, Maya noted. "Thank you," she said, surprised by the compliment. William took a seat in one of the armchairs, gesturing for Maya to sit as well. This was new. They rarely had conversations that weren't strictly necessary. "Your background is in art, isn't it? Illustration?" Maya nodded, even more surprised that he remembered this detail from her life before their marriage. "Yes, I was working as a children's book illustrator before everything changed." "Do you miss it?" The question caught her off guard. Yes, very much. William swirled the scotch in his glass, seeming to consider something. One of my companies is launching a children's literacy initiative. They're looking for original content books, apps, that sort of thing. Your skills might be useful. Maya sat up straighter. Are you offering me a job? Not a job. An opportunity to use your talents within the scope of our arrangement. Any work you do would be credited under your name, of course. Maya felt a spark of genuine excitement for the first time in months. I'd like that. Thank you. William nodded, his expression still hard to read. I'll have my assistant set up a meeting with the project director next week. They sat in silence for a moment. Not uncomfortable, but not quite easy either. Maya studied William surreptitiously. The man sitting across from her was still not handsome by conventional standards, but there was something different about him. His posture was more relaxed, his breathing less labored. Chen's treatments were clearly having an effect. You're staring, Maya, William said without looking at her. I'm sorry. I was just noticing that you seem healthier. William's lips twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. Dr. Chen is pleased with my progress. The new medications are working well. The chef could probably create some healthier versions of your favorite meals, Maya suggested. I could talk to him if you'd like. William regarded her with curiosity. Why would you do that? Maya hesitated. Because your health matters. To the family, to the company, to our arrangement. Ah, yes. Our arrangement. William finished his scotch and set the glass down. That reminds me, Dr. Chen has recommended that I resume certain physical activities that I've been unable to engage in for some time. Exercise, specifically. Maya felt a flutter of anxiety. Oh? What kind of exercise? Swimming. For one. The pool on the property hasn't been used in years. I've had it cleaned and heated. Dr. Chen will be coming 3 times a week to supervise my sessions. Relief flooded through Maya. That sounds like an excellent idea. I thought perhaps you might join me occasionally. Not for the therapy sessions, but afterward. You mentioned once that you used to swim competitively in high school. It was another surprise that he remembered such a detail. Maya had mentioned it exactly once, during a charity event when making small talk with another guest. William had been standing nearby but had given no indication he was listening. I'd like that, she said cautiously. William stood, signaling the end of their conversation. Good. We'll start next week. And Maya, he paused, looking at her directly. The dinner party was well executed. You did a good job. With that, he left the room, leaving Maya to wonder what exactly was happening to their carefully defined relationship. William was still not warm by any means, still kept his emotional distance, but something was undeniably shifting. He was noticing her, acknowledging her as more than just an accessory or a business transaction. As promised, William arranged a meeting with the Literacy Initiative team the following week. Maya found herself in a conference room at Blackwood Enterprises, presenting her portfolio to a group of excited marketing executives. Her illustrations were met with enthusiasm, and by the end of the meeting, she had been commissioned to create a series of culturally diverse characters for a new line of early reader books. For the first time since her marriage, Maya felt a sense of purpose beyond just being Mrs. William Blackwood. She set up a studio in one of the unused rooms in their suite, and William made no objection when art supplies began to take over the space. In fact, he occasionally stopped by to look at her progress, offering brief but thoughtful comments on her work. The swimming sessions became a regular part of their routine. William would have his therapy with Dr. Chen, and then Maya would join him for a more leisurely swim afterward. At first, they swam in parallel, barely interacting, but gradually they began to talk about her art project, about his companies, about books they had read or news stories they found interesting. Nothing deeply personal, Nothing about their feelings or their unusual marriage, but actual conversation nonetheless. One evening, about 6 weeks after the dinner party, Maya was sketching in the sitting room when William entered. He looked agitated, running a hand through his hair, a gesture she had never seen from him before. "Is everything all right?" she asked, setting aside her sketch pad. William paced for a moment before answering. "Reynolds is backing out of the deal. His company's been approached by a competitor with a better offer." Maya frowned. "Can you match it?" "It's not just about the money. It's about the relationship. Reynolds doesn't trust me. He thinks I'm too cold, too calculating." He said the last words with a hint of bitterness. Maya hesitated, then decided to take a risk. "Maybe you need to approach it differently. Martin's wife mentioned at the dinner party that their son is struggling with reading. He's dyslexic, and they're having trouble finding resources that work for him." William looked at her sharply. "How is that relevant?" "The Literacy Initiative. We're developing materials specifically designed for children with learning differences. What if you offered Martin early access to these resources for his son? Show him that you care about more than just the bottom line." William was silent for a long moment, considering. "That's not a bad idea. You could invite them to dinner again, just the four of us, more informal. Let him see the work we're doing. Let his wife see that you're invested in making a difference for children like their son." William studied her face, and Maya had the strange feeling he was seeing her for the first time. "You understand people, don't you, Maya? In a way I never have." "I just pay attention," she said softly. "Yes, you do." William continued to look at her for a beat longer than was comfortable, then nodded decisively. "Set it up. Dinner, next week. Show them your work on the project." The dinner with the Reynolds couple was a success. Martin's wife was moved to tears when Maya showed her the prototype materials they were developing, and by the end of the evening, Martin had agreed to reconsider the deal. As they said their goodbyes, Maya noticed that William's hand on her back felt differentless, like a prop for public display, and more like an actual gesture of connection. Later that night, as Maya prepared for bed in her separate bedroom within their suite, there was a knock at her door. When she opened it, William stood there, looking almost uncertain, another expression she had never seen on his face. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for tonight, for understanding what Reynolds needed to hear." "You're welcome," Maya replied, acutely aware that this was the first time William had ever sought her out in her bedroom. "I'm glad it worked out." William hesitated, then reached out slowly and took her hand. His touch was gentle, his fingers warm against hers. "Good night, William," she whispered back. After he left, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her hand where he had touched her. Something was definitely changing between them, something neither of them had anticipated when they signed those marriage papers nearly 6 months ago. The question was, what did it mean? And more importantly, what did she want it to mean? Maya wasn't sure she knew the answer to either question. But for the first time since becoming Mrs. William Blackwood, she felt like a real person in this marriage, not just a beautiful accessory purchased to complete William's public image. It was a small shift, but a significant one, and she wasn't entirely sure if it frightened or excited her. The children's literacy project consumed much of Maya's time over the next month, giving her a newfound sense of purpose. She created characters that reflected diverse backgrounds and experiences, drawing on her own childhood and the stories her grandmother had told her. The project team was enthusiastic about her work, and for the first time in her marriage, Maya felt like she was contributing something meaningful rather than just being decorative. William, meanwhile, continued his health regimen under Dr. Chen's supervision. The changes in him were becoming more pronounced. He had lost at least 20 pounds. His complexion had improved dramatically, and his energy levels were noticeably higher. He still maintained his reserved demeanor, but the harsh edge that had defined him when Maya first met him was softening, almost imperceptibly. Their swimming routine had evolved into a time when their usual roles fell away somewhat. In the water, William wasn't the intimidating billionaire, and Maya wasn't his trophy wife. They were just two people swimming laps. Occasionally racing, Maya usually won, much to William's grudging amusement, and talking about their days. It was during one of these swimming sessions that William surprised her with a question. "Do you ever resent me, Maya?" Maya, who had been floating on her back, righted herself in the water to look at him. "Resent you? For what specifically?" William leaned against the edge of the pool, water dripping from his now leaner face. "For all of it. The arrangement. Forcing you into this marriage." Maya considered her answer carefully. "I wasn't forced. I made a choice. A choice between your family's financial ruin and marrying me. Some choice." There was a bitterness in his voice that she hadn't expected. "It was still my decision," Maya insisted. "And you've kept your side of the bargain? My father's getting the best medical care. My brother's finishing college. My mother's business is thriving with the new equipment you provided. That doesn't answer my question." William's eyes, usually so calculating, held something that looked almost like vulnerability. Maya swam closer to him, treading water as she held his gaze. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Not as much as I used to." William seemed to accept this answer. "Fair enough." "What about you?" Maya asked, emboldened by his unusual openness. "Do you regret our arrangement?" A strange expression crossed William's face. "No, but I find myself reassessing certain aspects of it." Before Maya could ask what he meant, William pushed away from the edge and began swimming laps again, conversation clearly over. Maya watched him for a moment, his body moving more smoothly through the water than it had when they first started these sessions. Dr. Chen's treatments were working well indeed. That evening, Maya was working late in her studio when she heard a crash from William's bedroom, followed by a muffled curse. Without thinking, she rushed to his door and knocked urgently. "William? Are you all right?" When there was no immediate answer, she opened the door. William was sitting on the edge of his bed, a grimace of pain on his face, a broken water glass on the floor beside him. "I'm fine," he said shortly. "Just a muscle cramp. Dr. Chen warned me they might happen as I increase my exercise." Maya ignored his dismissive tone and entered the room, carefully avoiding the broken glass. "Where does it hurt?" "Left calf. It's nothing serious." "Let me help," Maya said, kneeling in front of him. "My dad used to get terrible cramps after his physical therapy sessions." Before William could protest further, Maya had taken his leg in her hands and begun to massage the cramped muscle. Her fingers were strong from years of detailed artwork, and she knew exactly how to work out the knot that had formed in his calf. William tensed at her touch initially, then gradually relaxed as the pain subsided. "Better?" Maya asked, looking up at him. William was staring at her with an unreadable expression. "Yes," he said, his voice unusually hoarse. Maya suddenly became aware of the intimacy of their position. She was kneeling between his legs, her hands on his bare skin, his face closer to hers than it had ever been. A strange tension filled the air between them, and Maya felt her heart rate accelerate. "I should clean up this glass," she said, breaking the moment. "I'll call someone," William replied, but he made no move to do so, still watching her face intently. "It's no trouble," Maya insisted, standing up and putting some distance between them. She found a small trash can and began carefully picking up the larger pieces of broken glass. William remained silent, but she could feel his eyes on her as she worked. When she finished and stood to leave, he spoke again. "Maya." She turned back to him. "Yes? Thank you. Not just for this. For everything you've been doing. The Reynolds deal went through. in large part because of your insight. And the literacy project is exceeding expectations because of your work." The compliment was unexpected, and Maya found herself feeling pleased, despite her confusion about the shifting dynamic between them. "You're welcome. I'm glad I could help. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? Just the two of us, not here at a restaurant." Maya blinked in surprise. "Like, a date?" William seemed almost embarrassed by the question. "If you want to call it that, I thought we might discuss the next phase of the literacy project, and perhaps get to know each other better." The request was so unexpected that Maya found herself nodding before she had fully processed it. "Yes, I'd like that." "Good. I'll make reservations at Nouveau. 8 o'clock? "That sounds perfect," Maya said, still trying to understand what was happening. "Good night, William." "Good night, Maya." As she returned to her own room, Maya's mind was racing. What had just happened? Had her husband, the man who had married her as a business transaction, just asked her on a date? And more troublingly, why did the thought make her heart beat faster? She called Zoe immediately, needing to process this new development with someone who knew her, really knew her, before all this. "He asked you on a date?" Zoe's incredulous voice came through the speaker. "The same man who literally bought you as arm candy?" "It's not like that," Maya protested, though she knew it had been exactly like that in the beginning. "He's changing. The treatments are working, and he's different somehow. Still reserved." "Maya," Zoe said seriously, "be careful. Whatever he's feeling, if he's even capable of real feelings, it doesn't erase what he did, how this marriage started." "I know that," Maya sighed. "But I'm here now, living this life. And for the first time it feels like it might be more than just a cold business arrangement." "Just promise me you'll keep your eyes open," Zoe said. "And remember, you have options now. The prenup gives you financial security if you leave." After hanging up, Maya stood by her window, looking out at the night sky. Zoe was right to be cautious. William Blackwood had essentially purchased her, using her family's desperate situation to secure a beautiful young wife who could improve his image. But the man who had asked her to dinner tonight had shown glimpses of something else: vulnerability, appreciation, perhaps even genuine interest in her as a person. The question was, could she trust this change? And more importantly, could she trust her own feelings about it? The restaurant William had chosen for their dinner was intimate and elegant, with soft lighting and well-spaced tables that allowed for private conversation. Maya wore a simple but striking red dress that highlighted her dark skin and delicate collarbones. When William saw her coming down the mansion's grand staircase, he had paused for a moment, his expression softening in a way she had never seen before. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and for once Maya felt like the compliment was genuine rather than an acknowledgement of his own good taste in acquiring her. Now, seated across from him at a corner table, Maya found herself studying William with new eyes. The physical changes were obvious. Had lost considerable weight, his skin had a healthier glow, and he moved with more energy. But there was something else, something in his demeanor that had shifted. The cold calculation that had dominated his expression when they first met had given way to something more contemplative, more present. "You're staring again," William said, but this time there was a hint of amusement in his voice. "Sorry," Maya replied with a small smile. "I was just noticing how well Dr. Chen's treatments are working. You look years younger." "I feel it," William admitted. "I haven't had this much energy since my 40s. He paused, swirling the water in his glass. She had given up alcohol entirely on Dr. Chen's advice. "Do you know what he told me last week? That my body is responding so well to treatment that I might outlive his initial projections by decades." Maya took a sip of her wine, unsure how to respond. When they had first arranged their marriage, one of the cold comforts she had given herself was that it likely wouldn't last long. William's health had been poor, and many had speculated he had only a few years left. "You don't look pleased by that news," William observed shrewdly. Maya set down her glass. "It's not that. I'm genuinely glad your health is improving. It's just, when we made our arrangement, we didn't discuss what a long-term future might look like." William nodded slowly. "That's fair. I didn't expect to have one." A waiter arrived with their appetizers, momentarily pausing the conversation. When they were alone again, "What would you want it to look like? Our future, if we were to have one together?" The question took Maya aback. I don't know. I've been focused on surviving the present." "Surviving," William repeated, a flicker of something like regret crossing his face. "Is that what these months have been for you? Mere survival?" Maya considered lying, then decided against it. "At first, yes. But lately, it's been different. The project gives me purpose, and our conversations." She hesitated. "They've become something I look forward to." William's expression was unreadable. "I've been unfair to you, Maya. When I proposed this arrangement, I saw you as a solution to a problemy public image needed refreshing, and a beautiful young wife would accomplish that. I didn't consider you as a person with dreams, talents, and needs of your own." "Why are you telling me this now?" Maya asked, her heart beating faster. William seemed to struggle for words, unusual for a man normally so articulate. "Because Dr. Chen isn't just treating my diabetes and cardiovascular issues. He's also been helping me address certain psychological patterns. Emotional disconnection, he calls it. A lifetime of viewing relationships as transactions rather than connections." Maya was stunned. The idea that William was in therapy, emotional therapy, was completely unexpected. "Is it working?" she asked quietly. "I'm beginning to see things differently," William replied, his voice low. "People differently, you differently." The intensity of his gaze made Maya look away. "And how do you see me now?" she asked, almost afraid of the answer. "As someone I'd like to know better," William said simply. "If you're willing." Maya looked back at him, searching his face for signs of manipulation or insincerity, but found none. This was new territory, William expressing genuine interest in her as a person, admitting his own flaws, showing vulnerability. "I think I'd like that too," she said finally. The rest of dinner passed in conversation more natural than any they had shared before. William asked about her childhood, her art studies, her dreams before their marriage had derailed them. Maya, in turn, learned about his humble beginnings, his father a factory worker, his mother a seamstress, his own ruthless climb from scholarship student to billionaire businessman. "I didn't have time for relationships," he admitted when Maya asked about his life before his first marriage. "Or rather, I didn't make time. Business was everything. By the time I achieved the success I wanted, I had forgotten how to connect with people without assessing their value to my enterprises." "Both your previous marriages ended quickly," Maya observed carefully. William nodded. "Because they were like our arrangements, convenient partnerships that served a purpose. The difference was that those women expected more from me emotionally than I was capable of giving at the time." "And now?" Maya couldn't help asking. William reached across the table and, for the second time ever, took her hand in his. "Now I'm trying to learn. It's not easy changing patterns of a lifetime. But for the first time, I want to try." The touch of his hand sent an unexpected warmth through Maya's body. This man was still not conventionally handsome, still decades her senior, still the person who had effectively purchased her as a trophy wife. Yet in this moment, with his guard down and his eyes showing a vulnerability she had never glimpsed before, Maya felt something shift inside her. After dinner, William suggested a walk along the riverfront near the restaurant. The night was clear and cool, the city lights reflecting on the water. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, their shoulders occasionally brushing. "I never thanked you properly," Maya said suddenly. For what? For saving my family. Whatever else this marriage is or isn't, you kept your word about that. My father's health has improved dramatically with the treatments you've paid for. My brother's about to graduate college. My mother's business is thriving. William was quiet for a moment. I used their situation to get what I wanted. There's no nobility in that. Maybe not, Maya conceded. But the outcome has been life-changing for them. I can't pretend that doesn't matter to me. They stopped walking, facing each other in the glow of a nearby streetlight. William looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. And what about you, Maya? Has any good come of this for you? Maya thought about the question seriously. I'm finding my way, she said finally. The literacy project has given me back something I thought I'd lost: me creativity, my purpose. And these conversations we've been having, they make me feel seen in a way I haven't felt since this began. William moved closer, his hand reaching up hesitantly to touch her cheek. I see you now, he said softly. I'm sorry it took me so long. The moment hung between them, charged with a tension neither had anticipated when the evening began. Maya was acutely aware of William's proximity, of the warmth of his hand against her skin, of the way his eyes had darkened as they focused on her face. When he leaned in to kiss her, she didn't pull away. The press of his lips against hers was gentle, questioning rather than demanding. It was nothing like she had imagined a kiss from William Blackwood would be. There was no coldness, no calculation, just a tentative warmth that invited rather than commanded. When they broke apart, Maya felt slightly dazed. This was not how she had expected the evening to end. William seemed equally affected, his usual composure noticeably shaken. I should take you home, he said, his voice rougher than usual. The drive back to the mansion was quiet, both of them processing what had just happened. Maya's mind was in turmoil. She had kissed William Blackwood willingly, even eagerly. The man who had essentially bought her as a trophy wife. The man who had been cold and dismissive for months. The man who was now looking at her like she was something precious rather than something owned. When they reached the mansion, William walked her to her bedroom door within their suite. He made no move to follow her inside, instead taking her hand and raising it to his lips. Thank you for tonight, he said simply. William, Maya began, not sure what she wanted to say but feeling that something needed to be said. We don't need to rush anything, he interrupted gently. We have time now. Good night, Maya. He turned and walked to his own bedroom, leaving Maya standing at her door, her lips still tingling from his kiss, her mind racing with questions she had never expected to ask. Inside her room, Maya sat at her vanity, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back at her was flushed, her eyes bright with confusion, and something that looked dangerously like hope. What was happening to her? Was she developing feelings for William? Or was this simply a response to being treated like a human being after months of being treated like a possession? And William, was his change genuine? Or was this some new strategy now that his health was improving? Maya wanted to believe that people could change, that the glimpses of humanity she had seen in William recently reflected a real transformation. But Zoe's warning echoed in her mind. Men like William Blackwood didn't change overnight. As Maya prepared for bed, she wondered what tomorrow would bring. For the first time since signing those marriage papers, she felt like she was stepping into unknown territory, a place where her relationship with William might become something real, something chosen rather than coerced by circumstance. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. She fell asleep thinking of the way William had looked at her on the riverfront, as if seeing her, truly seeing her for the first time. The weeks following their dinner date brought subtle but significant changes to Maya and William's relationship. William no longer treated their marriage as a mere business arrangement, but instead seemed genuinely interested in building something real between them. Each morning they had breakfast together, discussing their plans for the day. In the evenings, they often sat in the library, William reading business reports while Maya sketched concepts for the literacy project. What surprised Maya most was how comfortable this new routine felt. The awkwardness that had defined their early interactions had given way to a growing ease in each other's company. William still wasn't demonstrative, wasn't the type for grand romantic gestures or effusive compliments, but there was a warmth in his eyes now when he looked at her that hadn't been there before. One evening, as they sat in the library, William closed the file he had been reviewing and looked over at Maya. She was curled up in an armchair, pencil moving rapidly across her sketchpad. "What are you working on?" he asked. Maya looked up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "A new character for the series. She's a little girl who uses a wheelchair, but loves to imagine herself as an astronaut." William rose from his desk and moved to stand behind her chair, looking down at the sketch. "She has your eyes," he observed. Maya hadn't realized it, but he was right. The character's large, expressive eyes did resemble her own. "I suppose she does," she agreed with a small smile. It wasn't intentional. William's hand came to rest lightly on her shoulder, the touch casual yet intimate. "Your work is remarkable, Maya. The project director tells me the focus groups respond especially well to your characters. They're connecting with the stories," Maya said, pleased by the compliment. "That's what matters." William's thumb traced a small circle on her shoulder, sending a shiver down her spine. "Would you show me more? I've only seen bits and pieces." Maya nodded, surprised by his interest. She led him to her studio, where illustrations and character designs covered the walls. William moved around the room slowly, examining each piece with genuine attention. "These are more than just children's illustrations," he said finally. "There's depth here, emotion." "That's what I aim for," Maya replied, watching him carefully. "Children understand more than we give them credit for. They deserve art that respects their intelligence." William turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. "I never had books like these as a child. Just practical texts my father insisted would help me succeed in business." It was a rare personal revelation, from a man who seldom spoke about his past. Maya moved closer to him, encouraged by this glimpse into his childhood. "What did you want to read, if you could have chosen for yourself?" William was quiet for a moment, as if the question had never occurred to him. "Adventure stories, I suppose. Explorations of distant places, discoveries of hidden worlds." A faint smile touched his lips. "My mother smuggled me a copy of Treasure Island once. I read it by flashlight after my father had gone to bed." Maya tried to imagine William as a small boy, reading in secret, yearning for adventure while being molded into a businessman. Something in her heart softened at the image. "It's never too late to read for pleasure," she said gently. William's eyes met hers, and there was something vulnerable in his gaze. "Perhaps you could recommend something?" That night, Maya selected a book from the mansion's extensive library, a novel about exploration and discovery that she thought he might enjoy. When she handed it to him, their fingers brushed, and the now familiar warmth spread through her at his touch. "Thank you," William said, his voice low. Then, with a hesitancy that was entirely new, he leaned in and kissed her softly. Unlike their first kiss on the riverfront, this one deepened, William's arms sliding around her waist to draw her closer. Maya found herself responding eagerly, her hands moving to his shoulders, then his neck. "I should let you get some rest," William said, though he made no move to release her. Maya nodded, equally reluctant to end the moment. "Good night, William." He kissed her once more, briefly, but with unmistakable tenderness, before reluctantly stepping back. "Good night, Maya." Over the following days, these moments of physical affection became more frequent. A kiss, good morning, his hand at the small of her back as they walked, their fingers entwined as they sat together in the evenings. It was nothing like the performative touches William had used in public during the early months of their marriage. These were private moments, genuine connections, that neither felt the need to display for others. On Saturday morning, William surprised Maya by suggesting they have a picnic lunch on the estate grounds. The weather was perfect warm sunshine, with a gentle breeze, and they found a spot beneath a large oak tree overlooking the gardens. William had arranged for the chef to prepare a basket of Maya's favorite foods, complete with fresh strawberries and chocolate for dessert. "This is lovely," Maya said as she spread the blanket on the grass. "I've lived here for months but barely spent any time exploring the grounds. I used to walk here daily before my health declined," William admitted, easing himself down beside her. At 58, he still moved with some stiffness despite his improved condition. "It's good to be out here again." As they ate, they talked about the literacy project, about Maya's brother's upcoming graduation, about a business deal William was negotiating. Simple, ordinary topics, but discussed with a comfort and openness that would have been unimaginable just a few months ago. When they finished eating, William leaned back against the tree trunk and patted the space beside him. Maya hesitated only a moment before shifting to sit next to him, close enough that their shoulders touched. After a moment, William's arm came around her, drawing her against his side. "Are you happy, Maya?" he asked suddenly. The question caught her off guard. She looked up at him, studying his face, the lines around his eyes, the silver in his hair, the expression of genuine concern in his gaze. "I'm content," she answered honestly. "More than I expected to be when all this started." "But not happy," William pressed. Maya chose her words carefully. "Happiness isn't something I've allowed myself to expect from this marriage." William was silent for a long moment, his fingers absently stroking her arm. "I want you to be happy," he said finally. "I didn't care about that before. I should have." Maya felt something tighten in her chest at the simple sincerity in his voice. She placed her hand over his, squeezing gently. "I'm getting there," she admitted softly. "This whatever is happening between us now, it helps." William turned to look at her directly, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. "I don't know how to do this, Maya. How to be a real husband. How to make someone happy. I never learned." The vulnerability in his confession touched Maya deeply. She reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "You're doing better than you think." When he kissed her this time, there was a new intensity, a hunger that hadn't been present in their previous embraces. Maya felt herself responding in kind, her body pressing closer to his, her heart racing. William's hands moved to her waist, then her back, holding her as if she were precious. They broke apart, breathless, and William rested his forehead against hers. "We should go back to the house," he said, his voice rough. Maya nodded, though part of her was reluctant to end this moment. As they gathered the picnic things and walked back toward the mansion, William's hand held hers tightly, as if afraid she might slip away. That evening, after dinner, they sat together in the library as had become their custom. But there was a new tension in the air, an awareness of something shifting between them. When William set aside his book and looked at her, Maya felt her pulse quicken. "Would you stay with me tonight?" he asked quietly. "Just to sleep," he added quickly. "I find I don't want to be alone." The request surprised her, not because of what he was asking, but because of the hesitancy, the uncertainty in his voice. This was not a demand from the cold businessman who had arranged their marriage. This was a request from a man who was, perhaps for the first time, allowing himself to need someone. "Yes," Maya said simply. They prepared for bed separately, Maya changing into silk pajamas in her own room before joining William in his. His bedroom was large and elegantly appointed, though somewhat austere, with a massive king-sized bed dominating the space. William was already in bed, wearing pajamas, looking almost nervous as she entered. "I can still leave if you've changed your mind," he offered. Maya shook her head and moved to the opposite side of the bed, slipping under the covers. "I haven't changed my mind." They lay side by side for a moment, a careful distance between them, before William reached for her hand beneath the covers. "Thank you," he said softly. Maya turned on her side to face him. "For what?" "For giving use a chance. After how it began, I wouldn't have blamed you for keeping your distance forever." Maya studied his face in the dim light. The man beside her was still William Blackwood, still reserved, still sometimes awkward in emotional matters, but he was also undeniably changed. Or perhaps, she thought, he was simply allowing her to see parts of himself that had been there all along, buried beneath years of emotional armor. "I'm not doing it just for you," she admitted. "I'm doing it for me too. I want to know if what I'm feeling is real." "And what are you feeling?" William asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya took a deep breath. "Something I never expected to feel for you. Something that scares me." William's arms slid around her waist, drawing her closer until her head rested against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, neither speaking the word that hung in the air between them, a word that seemed impossible given their beginning, yet increasingly undeniable as they forged a new path together. In the morning, Maya woke to find William watching her, his expression soft, with something that looked remarkably like tenderness. "Good morning," she said, suddenly shy. "Good morning." William brushed a curl away from her face, his touch gentle. "Did you sleep well?" Maya nodded, aware of the warmth of his body next to hers, the intimacy of waking up beside him. "Better than I have in a long time." Something shifted in William's expression then, a decision being made. "Maya, there's something I need to tell you. About my health, about Dr. Chen's treatments." Maya sat up, suddenly concerned. "Is something wrong? Are you not getting better after all?" "Just the opposite," William said, sitting up beside her. "The treatments have been more successful than even Dr. Chen anticipated. My diabetes is under control. My heart function has improved dramatically. And," he hesitated, looking uncharacteristically uncertain, "certain other conditions are improving as well." Maya understood immediately what he was referring to, and felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Oh." "I didn't want to presume anything," William continued carefully. "Our arrangement began with the understanding that physical intimacy wouldn't be part of it. Just because my condition has changed doesn't mean our agreement has to change." Maya was touched by his consideration. The old William would have viewed her body as rightfully his, something acquired along with her signature on the marriage contract. This William was asking, respecting her agency in the matter. "I appreciate that," she said softly. "I need time to think about what I want." William nodded, accepting her words without argument. "Of course. There's no rush, Maya. As I said before, we have time now." But as the days passed, Maya found herself thinking more and more about the possibility of a full marriage with William. The man she had come to know over the past months was not the cold, calculating figure who had proposed their arrangement. He was complicated, certainly still working through decades of emotional detachment. But he was trying, and that effort touched her more deeply than grand romantic gestures ever could have. And there was no denying the physical attraction that had developed between them. Their kisses had grown more passionate, their embraces more lingering. Maya found herself responding to his touch with an eagerness that surprised her, imagining what it would be like to be truly intimate with him. One evening, about a week after they had begun sharing a bed, Maya made her decision. They had attended a charity gala together, and for once, William's hand at her back hadn't felt like a performance for others. When they returned home, Maya asked him to unzip her dress, a simple request that suddenly felt charged with meaning. William's fingers trembled slightly as he lowered the zipper, his breath warm on her bare shoulder. "Maya," he whispered, his voice rough with restraint. She turned to face him, her dress loosely held up by her arms. "I've been thinking about what you said, about our arrangement changing." William's eyes darkened, but he remained still, waiting. "And?" Maya let the dress fall to the floor, standing before him in her undergarments. "I want everything a real marriage includes. With you." William's breath caught audibly. He reached for her, then stopped himself. "Are you certain? I don't want you to feel obligated." "I'm certain," Maya said, stepping closer to him. "This isn't obligation, William. This is choice." When he kissed her this time, all restraint was gone. His hands moved over her body with reverent hunger, and Maya responded in kind, tugging at his clothes, eager to feel his skin against hers. As they fell onto the bed together, Maya marveled at how different this was from what she had feared when she signed their marriage contract. There was no sense of duty or resignation, only desire and a deepening emotional connection that neither had anticipated. Later, lying in William's arms, Maya traced patterns on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her fingers. Their lovemaking had been tender and passionate, William attentive to her needs in a way that spoke of genuine caring rather than mere physical release. "I never thought it could be like this between us," William murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Neither did I," Maya admitted. "When I signed those papers, I thought I was signing away any chance at real love." The word hung in the air between them, neither quite ready to claim it openly, but both increasingly aware of its presence in their changing relationship. As they drifted off to sleep, still wrapped in each other's arms, Maya realized that the gilded cage she had entered months ago was slowly transforming into something that felt remarkably like home. Maya woke to the sound of rain pattering against the bedroom windows and the warmth of William's body next to hers. For a moment, she simply listened to his steady breathing, marveling at how quickly she had grown accustomed to sharing his bed. 3 weeks had passed since their first night together. 3 weeks of discovering each other both physically and emotionally. William was a considerate lover, attentive to her needs, and increasingly willing to share his own vulnerabilities with her. Careful not to wake him, Maya slipped out of bed and padded to the window. The gardens were shrouded in mist, the flowers bowing under the weight of raindrops. It was a moody, introspective kind of day, perfect for staying indoors with a good book. "You're up early." William's sleep-roughened voice came from behind her. Maya turned to see him propped up on one elbow, watching her with a warmth that still surprised her sometimes. "The rain woke me," she explained, coming back to sit on the edge of the bed. William reached for her hand, lacing his fingers with hers. "I was thinking we might drive up to the lake house this weekend. Just the two of us. Dr. Chen says the mountain air would be good for my lungs." "I'd like that," Maya said, smiling. "I've never been there. It's more rustic than this place. Quieter. I used to go there to escape when the business world became too much." The fact that he wanted to share this private retreat with her felt significant. Maya leaned down to kiss him lightly. "Then let's go." After breakfast, Maya headed to her studio to work on the final illustrations for the literacy project. She was deep in concentration when Daniels appeared at the door. "Mrs. Blackwood, there's a Mr. Reynolds here to see you. He says it's regarding the children's project." Maya looked up in surprise. "Martin Reynolds? Did William know he was coming?" "Mr. Blackwood is in a meeting downtown. Mr. Reynolds says he was in the area and thought he'd stop by to discuss the dyslexia-friendly materials you showed his wife." Maya nodded, Of course. Please show him in here. A few minutes later, Martin Reynolds entered the studio. He was a handsome man in his 40s, with salt and pepper hair and an easy smile. Maya, thank you for seeing me without notice. I hope I'm not interrupting your work. Not at all, Maya said, gesturing for him to sit in one of the comfortable chairs near her drafting table. How's your son doing with the materials we provided? Incredibly well, Martin replied enthusiastically. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. The approach you've taken, the way the text is formatted, the illustrations that support comprehension without being childish, it's making a real difference for Timothy. Maya felt a surge of professional pride. I'm so glad to hear that. We're hoping to reach many more children like Timothy when the full series launches. That's what I wanted to discuss. Martin leaned forward. I'd like my foundation to fund an expansion of the project. Specifically, I'd like to commission a series tailored to older children with learning differences. Middle school and high school students often get left behind because they're expected to have outgrown their reading difficulties. That's absolutely true, Maya agreed, her mind already racing with ideas. Most materials for struggling older readers are either too simplistic in content or too challenging in format. Exactly. And from what I've seen of your work, you understand that balance perfectly. Martin's admiration was evident in his voice. Would you be interested in heading up such a project? Maya hesitated. I'd need to discuss it with William, of course. The current project is under his company's umbrella. Naturally, Martin nodded. But I want to be clear, I'm interested in your vision specifically. The way you approach these materials is unique. They spent the next hour discussing possibilities for the expanded project, with Maya sketching rough concepts as they talked. Martin was knowledgeable about learning differences and passionate about educational access, making him an engaged and thoughtful collaborator. When William returned home that evening, Maya was waiting for him in the library, eager to share the news about Martin's proposal. She had changed into a simple blue dress that William had once commented brought out the warmth in her eyes. You look lovely, William said as he entered, coming to kiss her briefly before pouring himself a glass of water. How was your day? Interesting, Maya replied. Martin Reynolds stopped by. William paused mid-sip. Did he? What did he want? Maya explained Martin's proposal, her excitement evident as she described the potential impact of materials designed for older struggling readers. It would be a separate project from the current one, funded by his foundation rather than Blackwood Enterprises. William's expression had grown increasingly closed as she spoke. And he came here, to our home, to discuss this with you, without contacting me first? Maya was taken aback by his tone. He was in the neighborhood and thought he'd stop by. I didn't think you'd mind, given your business relationship with him. Our business relationship is precisely why he should have approached me, not my wife behind my back. The phrase, my wife, struck Maya like a physical blow. Not you, or even Maya, but my wife, a possession, a extension of himself, rather than an autonomous person. William, she said carefully, Martin was interested in my professional expertise. The project would be about my illustrations and approach to learning differences. And you believe that's all it was about? William's voice had taken on a harsh edge she hadn't heard in months. You're not naive, Maya. Reynolds has been looking for ways to get closer to my business interests since we met. Now he's found a way through you. That's not fair, Maya protested. Martin genuinely cares about children with learning difficulties. His own son is a convenient excuse, William interrupted. Men like Reynolds always have an angle, and they'll use whatever or whoever they is a convenient excuse, William interrupted. Men like Reynolds always have an angle, and they'll use whatever or whoever they can to get what they want. Maya stared at him, stunned by the sudden reappearance of the cold, suspicious man she had married. You're overreacting. This was a professional conversation about a worthwhile project. A project that would take you away from the one we're working on together, William pointed out, his jaw tight. A project that would put you in regular contact with Martin Reynolds. And that's the real issue, isn't it? Maya said, understanding dawning. You're jealous. William scoffed, but the flash in his eyes told her she had hit the mark. Don't be ridiculous. I'm concerned about Reynolds' motives. He's a shrewd businessman who's suddenly very interested in children's literacy materials. It doesn't add up. His son has dyslexia, Maya insisted. You've seen the reports on the materials we created for him. They're working. And Reynolds couldn't have discussed this expansion with both of us present? He had to come here when I was away? Maya stood up, her patience wearing thin. He didn't plan it that way. And even if he had, I'm perfectly capable of having a professional conversation without you present. I'm an illustrator, William. This is my field of expertise. You're also my wife, William said, his voice dropping dangerously. The possessiveness in his tone sent a chill through Maya. This was a side of William she hadn't seen in months, the controlling businessman who viewed people as assets to be managed. Being your wife doesn't make me your property, she said quietly but firmly. I thought we'd moved past that understanding of our marriage. William's expression flickered, a brief crack in his anger revealing something like uncertainty. He set down his glass and ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Maya had come to recognize as a sign of internal conflict. I don't want to argue about this, he said finally, his voice less harsh. But I'd prefer if you didn't make any commitments to Reynolds without discussing them with me first. It was a partial retreat, but Maya wasn't ready to let it go entirely. I told him I would need to talk with you before deciding anything. But William, this is an opportunity for me to make a real difference for older children who struggle with reading. It matters to me. William was silent for a long moment, studying her face. We'll discuss it further tomorrow when we're both calmer. He left without touching her, without the kiss that had become their normal parting gesture over the past weeks. Maya remained in the library, troubled by how quickly their dynamic had reverted to its earlier pattern at the first hint of challenge to William's control. That night, Maya slept in her own bedroom for the first time in weeks. William didn't come to find her, though she half expected him to. The distance between them felt like more than just the physical space of the mansion's hallway. It was a reminder of the fundamental imbalance at the heart of their marriage, however much it had seemed to change recently. In the morning, Maya found William already at the breakfast table, reading the financial news on his tablet. He looked up when she entered, his expression guarded. "Good morning," he said formally. "Morning," Maya replied, taking her seat as the staff served her usual coffee and fruit. They ate in uncomfortable silence for several minutes before William finally set aside his tablet. "I've been thinking about Reynolds' proposal," he said. Maya looked up, surprised that he was broaching the subject so directly. "And? I've done some research. His foundation does have a legitimate focus on learning disabilities, and the materials we developed for his son have shown measurable results." William's tone was businesslike, but the fact that he had looked into the matter seriously was something. "If you're interested in the project, I won't stand in your way." Relief washed through Maya. "Thank you. I really do think it could make a difference." William nodded, then hesitated before continuing. "But I want to be clear about something, Maya. Last night, when I reacted strongly, it wasn't entirely about Reynolds or his motives." "What was it about, then?" William looked uncomfortable, uncharacteristically struggling for words. "When I heard that he had sought you out specifically, that he wanted you for your talent rather than as an extension of me, I felt threatened." The admission clearly cost him, and Maya felt some of her anger soften. "Threatened how?" "You're becoming more independent," William said slowly. "Finding your own path, making connections in the business world. That's as it should be. But a part of me, the part that's been controlling and isolated for most of my life, feared losing you to these new opportunities." to people who might appreciate your talents more openly than I have." It was perhaps the most honest thing William had ever said to her, and Maya found herself moved despite her lingering hurt. "William, appreciating my work doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. These past few weeks, they've meant something to me. I wouldn't throw that away for a professional opportunity." William reached across the table, offering his hand. Maya took it after only a slight hesitation. "I'm not good at this, Maya," he admitted quietly. "I've spent my life seeing relationships as transactions, as power dynamics to be managed. Dr. Chen says I have deep-seated trust issues from my childhood. It's not an excuse for how I behaved last night, but you're trying to change?" Maya finished for him. "I know that. I see that. But William, you can't revert to treating me like property every time you feel insecure. That's not sustainable." "No, it isn't," he agreed. "I'm sorry, Maya." The sincerity in his voice reached her, and Maya felt the tension between them begin to ease. "I accept your apology, but we need to keep talking about these things if we're going to make this marriage real." William's grip on her hand tightened. "I want that, more than I've wanted anything in a very long time." That evening they sat together in the library as usual, but with a new awareness of the fragility of the connection they were building. William was reading one of the novels Maya had recommended, a far cry from the business reports that had once been his only reading material, while Maya sketched ideas for the new project Reynolds had proposed. "Would you mind if I looked?" William asked, nodding toward her sketchpad. Maya handed it to him, watching as he studied her preliminary designs for materials aimed at teenage readers with dyslexia. "These are excellent," he said finally. "You've found a way to make the format accessible without making it feel childish. That's the biggest challenge with older kids," Maya explained. "They're already sensitive about their reading difficulties. Materials that feel babyish just compound their embarrassment." William nodded thoughtfully. "I'd like to support this project, not just allow it. Perhaps Blackwood Enterprises could partner with Reynolds Foundation, provide additional funding and distribution channels." Maya looked at him in surprise. "Really? Yesterday you were suspicious of the entire idea." "Yesterday I was reacting from insecurity," William admitted. "Today I'm trying to think about what matters to you, and how I can be a part of that rather than an obstacle." The gesture touched Maya deeply. It was the clearest sign yet that William was genuinely trying to transform their relationship from a business arrangement into a true partnership. "Thank you," she said softly. "That would mean a lot to me." William set aside the sketchpad and moved to sit beside her on the sofa, taking her hand in his. "I nearly ruined this, didn't I? What we've been building." "We had a fight, William. Couples have fights. It doesn't mean everything is ruined." "Couples," William repeated, a small smile touching his lips. "Is that what we are now, a couple?" Maya felt herself blushing slightly. "I think we've moved beyond the original terms of our arrangement, don't you?" In answer, William leaned in to kiss her, his touch gentle but full of meaning. When they broke apart, he kept his face close to hers. "I've never been good at saying what I feel, Maya. Business doesn't require emotional vocabulary, but I'm learning. For you, with you." That night, as they lay together in the darkness of their bedroom, William holding her close against his chest, Maya reflected on the journey they had taken since their cold, transactional wedding day. The road hadn't been smooth, and today had shown that there were still obstacles to overcome. William's possessiveness, his deep-seated control issues, wouldn't disappear overnight, no matter how much progress he had made. But there was something real growing between them now, something neither had anticipated when they signed those marriage papers. Something worth fighting for, worth working through the difficult moments. As she drifted toward sleep, Maya realized that she was no longer just surviving her marriage to William Blackwood. Against all odds, she was beginning to thrive in it. The lake house was everything William had described: rustic, peaceful, and surrounded by breathtaking mountain scenery. It was smaller than Maya had expected, a cedar-sided cabin with a large deck overlooking the water. Inside, the furnishings were comfortable but simple, a stark contrast to the opulence of the mansion. "This is beautiful," Maya said as she explored the main living area with its stone fireplace and wall of windows facing the lake. "I can see why you come here to escape." William was bringing in their bags, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him, in a button-down shirt and casual slacks rather than his usual tailored suit. "It's the only property I own that feels like a home rather than a statement." They spent the morning settling in, with William showing Maya around the grounds and the small private dock where a rowboat was tied. After a simple lunch on the deck, William suggested a hike to a nearby waterfall. "Are you up for it?" Maya asked, concerned about his still recovering health. William smiled, clearly pleased by her concern. "Dr. Chen says moderate exercise is good for me, and the trail isn't too strenuous." The hike took them through dense forest, along a well-maintained path that followed a bubbling stream. William moved more slowly than Maya, but with a steady determination that spoke of his improving stamina. When they reached the waterfall, they sat on a large rock, watching the water cascade down the rocky cliff face. "I've owned this property for 15 years, William said, his voice almost meditative, "but I've rarely shared it with anyone. My first 2 wives preferred luxury resorts for vacations. I'm not them," Maya said simply. William looked at her, his eyes soft. "No, you're not. You're unexpected, Maya, in every way." The compliment warmed her. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the roar of the falling water and the calls of birds in the surrounding trees. "Tell me something about your childhood," William said suddenly. "Something important." Maya considered the question. "My grandmother was an artist," she said finally. "She never had formal training, couldn't afford it, but she painted beautiful scenes of everyday life in her neighborhood. When I was little, I would sit beside her for hours, watching her work, learning how to see the world through an artist's eyes." "Is that why you became an illustrator?" Maya nodded. "She gave me my first set of real paints when I was 8, said I had the gift. After she died, I promised myself I would make something of that gift, make her proud." "She would be," William said with conviction. "Your work has purpose and heart. That's rare." "What about you?" Maya asked. "What led you into business rather than following other interests?" William's expression darkened slightly. "My father was demanding. Success was the only acceptable outcome in his worldview, and success meant money and power. I was an only child, and from the time I could understand words, he made it clear that I was expected to surpass him." "That sounds like a heavy burden for a child," Maya observed gently. "It was," William acknowledged. "I used to draw as a boy, nothing like your work, just sketches of buildings, designs for structures I imagined. My father found my sketchbook when I was 12 and tore it up. 'Drawing is for dreamers,' he said. 'Blackwoods are doers.'" The story made Maya's heart ache. "That's terrible, William." He shrugged, but she could see the old pain beneath the gesture. It was a different time, a different approach to parenting. He thought he was preparing me for a harsh world. "Still," Maya said, taking his hand, "children need encouragement for their passions, not just their practical skills." William was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. "Sometimes I wonder who I might have been without his influence, if I might have been." The vulnerability in his admission touched Maya deeply. This was the real William emerging, the man beneath decades of emotional armor. "It's never too late to find happiness," she said softly. William looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. "No, I suppose it isn't." That evening, After dinner on the deck watching the sunset paint the lake in gold and crimson, they sat before a crackling fire in the cabin's living room. William poured a small glass of wine for each of them, just one, in keeping with his health regimen. "I have something for you," he said, seeming almost nervous as he retrieved a wrapped package from his bag. Maya took it, surprised by the gesture. "What's this?" "Open it and see." Inside the wrapping paper was a leather-bound sketchbook of exceptional quality, along with a set of professional-grade drawing pencils. "William, this is lovely," Maya said, running her fingers over the soft leather cover. "Look inside," he urged. Maya opened the sketchbook to find an inscription on the first page, written in William's precise handwriting. "For Maya, whose art brings light and meaning to the world. With admiration and love, William." The word love jumped out at her, making her heart race. It was the first time either of them had used the word in reference to their relationship. "William," she began, not sure what to say. "You don't need to respond to that," he said quickly. I wanted you to know what I'm feeling, even if I'm not always good at expressing it directly." Maya set aside the sketchbook and moved closer to him on the sofa. "Thank you," she said simply, before leaning in to kiss him. The kiss deepened quickly, months of growing attraction and emotional connection fueling a passion that surprised them both. William's hands traveled up her back, drawing her closer, while Maya's fingers tangled in his hair. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "I love you too," Maya whispered against his lips, the words emerging naturally, without the fear or hesitation she might have expected. William pulled back slightly to look at her, his eyes filled with a mix of disbelief and joy. "Do you mean that?" "I do," Maya said, surprising herself with the certainty she felt. "I didn't expect Tono with how this all began. But I do, William. I love the man you're becoming, the man you're allowing me to see." Something seemed to break open in William then, a final wall crumbling. He pulled her into his arms with an intensity that took her breath away, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in his world. They made love there in front of the fire, with a tenderness and passion that transcended their physical differences. When they had first been intimate weeks ago, there had still been a cautious aspect to their love-making. Tonight, that caution was gone, replaced by a deep trust and vulnerability that made every touch, every kiss, feel like a revelation. Afterward, they lay wrapped in a blanket on the hearthrug, the firelight dancing across their skin. William traced the curve of Maya's face with gentle fingers, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. "I've spent my life believing love was a weakness," he admitted quietly. "Something that could be used against me, something that would distract me from success. My father taught me that." Maya kissed his palm as it passed her lips. "And now? Now I wonder if it's the only thing that matters after all." They stayed at the lake house for 3 days, hiking, rowing on the lake, and spending long hours talking about their pasts, their present, and tentatively their future together. When they weren't talking, they were discovering each other's bodies with increasing intimacy and trust. By the time they packed to return to the city, something fundamental had shifted in their relationship. The transaction that had brought them together had been transformed into something neither could have anticipated: a genuine bond based on mutual understanding, respect, and yes, love. On their last morning, as they sat on the dock watching the mist rise from the lake, William took Maya's hand. "When we go back, I want to make some changes." "What kind of changes?" Maya asked. "I want us to be partners, truly," William said. "I want your name on my accounts, your input on the business decisions that affect our future. I want to amend the prenuptial agreement to reflect that this is a real marriage now, not a business arrangement." Maya was stunned by the offer. "William, that's a lot of trust to place in me all at once." "I know," he acknowledged. And 6 months ago, I wouldn't have been capable of it. But I don't want to be that man anymore, the one who sees everything, everyone, as a transaction to be managed. His sincerity was unmistakable, and Maya felt a swell of emotion. This was far beyond what she had ever expected when she had signed those marriage papers. William was offering her not just his love, but his trust, something she suspected he had never fully given anyone before. "I'll be worthy of that trust," she promised, squeezing his hand. William brought her fingers to his lips. "I know you will. That's why I can offer it." When they returned to the mansion that evening, it felt different, somehow less like the gilded cage it had once been, and more like a shared space where their future together would unfold. As promised, William immediately began the process of amending their financial arrangements, adding Maya's name to accounts, involving her in business discussions, and instructing his lawyers to revise the prenuptial agreement. Maya, for her part, threw herself into both the original literacy project and the new one proposed by Martin Reynolds. With William's support, a partnership was formed between Blackwood Enterprises and the Reynolds Foundation, creating a platform for distributing the materials to schools nationwide. The work filled Maya with purpose, allowing her to use her talents to make a real difference in children's lives. In the evenings, they continued their routine of sharing time in the library, but now their conversations ranged more widely from art and literature to politics and philosophy. William was discovering interests beyond business, reading books Maya recommended and even, hesitantly, trying his hand at sketching alongside her occasionally. "I'll never be an artist," he said ruefully one evening, looking at his awkward attempt at drawing the view from their window. "That's not the point," Maya replied. "The point is to see the world differently, to connect with that part of yourself your father tried to bury." William considered her words thoughtfully. "You know, I think he would have liked you, despite himself. Your determination, your clarity of purpose, those are qualities he respected. But he wouldn't have approved of you marrying me," Maya said, stating what they both knew was true. William's father had been a man of his generation, with all the prejudices that implied. "No," William agreed. "He wouldn't have, and that would have been entirely his loss." The simple statement, delivered with such conviction, warmed Maya's heart. William had come so far from the cold businessman who had proposed their arrangement less than a year ago. The transformation wasn't complete. He still had moments of stubbornness, of reflexive control, but the trajectory was clear. One night, as they lay in bed together, William traced patterns on Maya's bare shoulder, his touch gentle in the darkness. "I have a confession to make," he said, his voice low. "What is it?" Maya asked, turning to face him. "When I proposed our arrangement initially, it wasn't just about my public image or having a beautiful wife for appearances. I had seen you before, at charity events with your mother's catering company. I noticed how you interacted with people, your warmth, your intelligence. I was drawn to you, though I wouldn't have used that word then." Maya was stunned by this revelation. "You never told me that." "I didn't understand it myself at the time," William admitted. "I had convinced myself it was a purely strategic decision. But looking back now, I think part of me was reaching for something I didn't know how to ask for directly, a real connection, a chance at something genuine, even if I approached it in entirely the wrong way." "Why tell me this now?" Maya asked. William's fingers continued their gentle exploration of her skin. "Because I want you to know that what's between us now isn't entirely an accident or a surprise. The seed of it was there from the beginning, buried under all my defenses and miscalculations." Maya considered his words, finding a strange comfort in them. The idea that William had seen something in her before their arrangement, that some tiny spark of genuine interest had existed beneath the cold transaction, made their current happiness feel less like a fluke and more like a destiny they had stumbled toward, however clumsily. "Thank you for telling me," she said, leaning in to kiss him softly. "It matters." As she drifted off to sleep in his arms, Maya marveled at the journey they had taken. From a reluctant bride signing away her freedom to save her family, to a woman who had found unexpected love with the man who had once seemed her captor. Life, she reflected drowsily, had a strange way of upending expectations and finding paths to joy where none had seemed possible. The news came on a Tuesday morning as Maya and William were having breakfast. Daniels entered with a silver tray bearing a telephone, his expression grave. "Mr. Blackwood, there's an urgent call from your attorney, Mr. Harrington." William frowned, taking the phone. "Harrington?" Maya watched as William's expression changed from mild annoyance to shock as he listened to whatever his lawyer was saying. "When did this happen?" he demanded. "How is that possible?" He listened for another minute, his face growing increasingly tense. "I understand. Have security increase at all our properties immediately. I'll be at the office within the hour." When he hung up, William sat motionless for a moment, his breakfast forgotten. "William, what's wrong?" Maya asked, concerned by the sudden pallor of his face. He looked at her, his expression grim. "Richard Blackwood has been released from prison. Early parole for good behavior." Maya frowned, trying to place the name. "Richard Blackwood? Is he a relative?" "My younger half-brother," William said, his voice tight. "From my father's second marriage. He's been in prison for the past 7 years for embezzlement and fraud crimes he committed against Blackwood Enterprises." This was the first Maya had heard of William having a brother, half or otherwise. "Why didn't you ever mention him?" "Because as far as I'm concerned, he ceased to exist the day he betrayed the company," William replied coldly. "He stole millions, nearly destroyed a division I had spent years building, and showed absolutely no remorse when caught." The hardness in William's voice reminded Maya of the man she had first married, calculating, unforgiving, shut down emotionally. "And now he's out," Maya said, trying to understand why this news had affected William so deeply. "Do you think he poses some kind of threat?" William stood abruptly, straightening his tie. "Richard has spent 7 years in prison with nothing to do but nurture his resentment toward me." "Yes, I think he poses a threat." He checked his watch. "I need to meet with the security team and my lawyers. I likely won't be home until late." He moved to leave, then paused, seeming to remember their new relationship. He returned to Maya's side and leaned down to kiss her briefly. "Don't worry, I'll handle this." After he left, Maya sat for a long time, processing this unexpected revelation. In all their conversations about family and the past, William had never once mentioned having a brother. The omission felt significant, especially given how open they had been with each other recently. Curious, Maya went to William's studio room. She now had full access, searched his files for information about Richard Blackwood. She found very little, just a few old news clippings about the trial and sentencing. The articles described Richard as the younger Blackwood brother, who had defrauded the family company of $12 million through an elaborate accounting scheme. What struck Maya most was the family resemblance evident in the courthouse photos. Richard was a younger, more conventionally handsome version of William, with the same determined jawline and piercing eyes. But where William's expression was always controlled, Richard's showed raw emotion, anger, defiance, and something that looked almost like pain. That evening, William returned home late as predicted, his face lined with exhaustion. Maya had waited up for him in the library, reading but unable to fully concentrate as questions about this mysterious brother filled her mind. "How did it go?" she asked, as William poured himself a small measure of scotch, something he rarely allowed himself these days. "As well as could be expected," he replied, loosening his tie and sinking into his favorite armchair. "Security has been increased. The legal team is preparing restraining orders in case Richard tries to make contact. Maya set aside her book. William, why have you never mentioned having a brother? William took a sip of his scotch, his expression hardening. Half-brother. And as I said this morning, as far as I'm concerned, he no longer exists. That seems extreme, Maya said carefully. I understand he betrayed you professionally, but he's still family. William's laugh was bitter. Family? Richard made his choice 7 years ago when he stole from the company our father built. He knew exactly what he was doing and who he was hurting. Maya could see the pain beneath William's anger, a wound that clearly went deeper than mere business betrayal. What happened between you two? Before the embezzlement, I mean. William was silent for a long moment, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. We were close once, he finally admitted. Despite the 10-year age difference, despite having different mothers, I looked out for him after our father died, brought him into the company, mentored him, trusted him. And then he betrayed that trust, Maya said softly. In the worst possible way. William's voice was tight with controlled emotion. It wasn't just the money, Maya. It was that he did it so methodically, so deliberately. He looked me in the eye day after day while systematically undermining everything I'd built. Did he ever explain why? Maya asked. William's expression darkened further. Oh, he had plenty of explanations at the trial. Said he felt overshadowed, undervalued. Said our father had always preferred me, had never given him a chance to prove himself, as if that justified stealing millions. There was something more here, Maya sensed, something William wasn't saying. And before the trial, did you confront him when you first discovered what he was doing? William went very still, his knuckles whitening around his glass. Yes. When he didn't elaborate, Maya pressed gently. What did he say then? He said I was just like our father, William replied, his voice barely audible, cold, calculating, incapable of seeing people as anything but assets or liabilities. He said he'd learned from the best how to view the world as a series of transactions. The words seemed to hang in the air between them, uncomfortably close to observations Maya herself had made about William in the early days of their marriage. No wonder he had never mentioned Richard. The betrayal had struck at William's deepest insecurities about himself and his capacity for human connection. That must have hurt, Maya said quietly. William's laugh was hollow. I didn't allow it to hurt. I made sure he received the maximum sentence. I visited him once in prison to tell him he was no longer my brother. And now he's out, Maya said. Revenge, most likely. Or money, possibly both. William drained his scotch and set the glass aside. But he won't get either. I've made sure of that. Maya moved to sit on the arm of William's chair, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry you're having to deal with this. But William, people can change. You've changed. William looked up at her, his expression softening slightly. That's different. Is it? Maya asked gently. 7 years is a long time. Prison changes people, sometimes for the better. You're too trusting, William said, but there was no bite in his tone, just weary affection. He pulled her down into his lap, wrapping his arms around her waist. It's one of the things I love about you. Maya leaned against him, feeling the tension in his body. I'm not suggesting you trust him immediately. Just keep an open mind about the possibility that he might be different now. Like you're different. William pressed a kiss to her temple. Let's not talk about Richard anymore tonight. How was your day? How's the new project progressing? Maya allowed the change of subject, recognizing that William had shared more about this painful chapter of his life than he had likely shared with anyone. The fact that he had opened up at all was progress, another sign of the walls continuing to come down between them. But over the following weeks, Richard Blackwood's release cast a shadow over their otherwise happy life together. William worked longer hours, checking security reports, and maintaining constant contact with his legal team. He became more protective of Maya, insisting that she take the driver when going to meetings rather than driving herself, asking her to be careful about sharing personal information with new acquaintances. "Do you really think Richard would try to hurt me to get to you?" Maya asked one evening after William had expressed concern about her attending a literacy project fundraiser alone. "I don't know what he might do," William admitted, "and that uncertainty is exactly why I want you to be cautious." The protectiveness was touching in a way, evidence of how much she had come to mean to William, but it also felt like a step backward in their relationship, a return to William's controlling tendencies that they had worked so hard to move beyond. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after Richard's release, Maya was leaving a meeting at the Reynolds Foundation when she noticed a man watching her from across the street. Something about his stance, the intensity of his gaze, made her pause. As their eyes met, she realized with a shock that it was Richard Blackwood older than in the newspaper photos, but unmistakably William's half-brother. Rather than approach her, he simply nodded once, then turned and walked away. Maya debated whether to tell William about the encounter. He had been on edge for weeks, and this might push him into even more extreme protective measures. On the other hand, they had promised honesty with each other, and keeping this secret felt wrong. When she arrived home, she found William in his study, reviewing documents. "I need to tell you something," she said without preamble. William looked up, instantly alert to the seriousness in her tone. "What is it?" "I saw Richard today, outside the Reynolds Foundation." William was on his feet immediately, his face pale with anger and concern. "Did he approach you, speak to you, threaten you in any way?" "No," Maya said quickly. "He just looked at me, then nodded and walked away." "Damn it," William muttered, reaching for his phone. "I'm calling security. They should have notified me he was in the area." "William, wait," Maya said, placing her hand over his. "He didn't do anything threatening. Maybe it was just coincidence." "There are no coincidences with Richard," William said grimly. "He was sending a message, letting me know he can get close to you if he wants to." The thought sent a chill through Maya. "What do you want to do?" William's jaw was set in a hard line. "I want you to be safe. I'm increasing your security detail, and I want you to limit your public appearances for a while." "William, I can't put my life on hold because your brother might be watching me," Maya protested. "The literacy project launch is next week. I need to be there." "Then I'll be there with you," William said firmly. "And we'll have extra security." Maya could see that arguing further would be pointless. William's protective instincts were in full force, his usual rationality clouded by old wounds and fears. The following week, at the literacy project launch, William stayed close to Maya's side throughout the event. He was polite but distracted, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd for any sign of his brother. Maya felt the tension radiating from him, affecting her own ability to enjoy what should have been a triumphant occasion as the educational materials she had worked so hard on were officially presented to the public. Afterward, as they drove home, Maya reached for William's hand. "Thank you for being there today," she said. "I know it wasn't easy for you." William squeezed her hand, his expression softening slightly. "I'm proud of what you've accomplished, Maya. I just wish we could celebrate it without this shadow hanging over us." "Have you considered that maybe Richard isn't planning anything?" Maya suggested carefully. "That maybe he was just curious about the woman his brother married? It's been all over the society pages, after all." William's expression closed again. "You don't know him, Maya. Richard doesn't do anything without a purpose, usually one that benefits him at someone else's expense." "People change," Maya insisted gently. "You've changed." "Because of you," William said, his voice softening. "Because you saw something in me worth changing for." The admission touched Maya deeply, but she pressed on, sensing an opportunity to get through William's armor on this issue. Maybe Richard has found his own reason to change. 7 years is a long time to reflect on your mistakes. William was silent for a long moment, staring out the car window at the passing city lights. "You want me to give him a chance," he said finally. "Not a question, but a realization." "I want you to consider it," Maya said carefully. "Not for his sake, but for yours. This anger, this fear, it's consuming you, William. You've worked so hard to move beyond the man who sees every relationship as a transaction or a threat. Don't let Richard drag you back to that place." William turned to look at her, his expression troubled but thoughtful. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "That's all I can promise right now." It was a small concession, but Maya knew William well enough by now to recognize it as significant. He didn't make promises lightly, even ones as qualified as this. 2 days later, William received a letter at his office. There was no return address, but he recognized Richard's handwriting immediately. For a long moment, he simply stared at the envelope, tempted to throw it away unopened. But Maya's words echoed in his mind, and with reluctance, he tore it open. The letter inside was brief. "William, I know you have no reason to trust me or anything I might say. I accept that. The choices I made 7 years ago were inexcusable, driven by resentment and greed I've had a long time to regret. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to read this letter. But in case you do, I want you to know 2 things. First, I have no intention of disrupting the life you've built. My watching your wife was wrong, a moment of curiosity that I immediately recognized as inappropriate. It won't happen again. Second, prison forced me to face truths about myself I spent years avoiding. The hardest was acknowledging that despite what I told myself, what I did wasn't about you or father or feeling overlooked. It was about my own failings, my own inability to measure up to the standard you set. I'm building a new life now, far from Blackwood Enterprises and the financial world. You won't hear from me again after this unless you wish it. Richard." William read the letter 3 times, searching for hidden threats or manipulations between the lines. Finding none, he folded it carefully and placed it in his desk drawer. That evening he showed the letter to Maya. She read it silently, then looked up at him. "What do you think? Do you believe him?" William ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Maya now recognized as a sign of deep internal conflict. "I don't know. The Richard I knew was always charming, always convincing. This sounds sincere, but so did all his explanations for the discrepancies I found before discovering the full extent of his embezzlement." "What does your instinct tell you?" Maya asked. William was quiet for a long moment. "That he might be telling the truth. That prison may have changed him as fundamentally as—" he hesitated, "as falling in love with you has changed me." The admission hung in the air between them, profound in its implications. William, who had built his life around calculated risk and worst-case scenarios, was considering the possibility of trust. "You don't have to decide anything right now," Maya said gently. "Take time to process it." William nodded, drawing her into his arms. "How did I get so lucky?" he murmured against her hair. "To find someone who helps me see the possibility of redemption, even where I was most determined to shut it out." Maya held him tightly, feeling the tension gradually leaving his body. "It's not luck, William. It's choice. We've both chosen to see beyond our beginnings, to believe that people, including ourselves, can change." In the weeks that followed, William didn't contact Richard, but the oppressive anxiety that had gripped him since his brother's release began to ease. He reduced Maya's security detail to normal levels and stopped obsessively checking for signs of Richard's presence. The shadow that had fallen over their happiness gradually lifted, allowing them to refocus on their shared future. One evening, as they sat together in the garden watching the sunset, William took Maya's hand. "I've been thinking about what you said about choices." he said, "about how we've both chosen to see beyond our beginnings." "And?" Maya prompted when he fell silent. "And I wonder if we shouldn't make that choice more formal," William said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Our marriage began as an arrangement, a transaction. What if we renewed our vows, made promises that reflect what we've become to each other, rather than what we started as?" The suggestion took Maya's breath away. "You want to marry me again? For real this time?" "Yes," William said simply. "No prenuptial agreements, no business considerations, just two people who have found something neither expected: love, partnership, a future worth building together." Tears welled in Maya's eyes as the full meaning of what he was proposing sank in. Their first wedding had been a cold, joyless affair, witnessed by a handful of people and celebrated by none. This would be a true beginning, a conscious choice made with open eyes and open hearts. "Yes," she whispered, "I would like that very much." William's smile was radiant as he leaned in to kiss her, sealing their new agreement tone based not on desperation or calculation, but on the deepest kind of love. They began planning a small but meaningful ceremony for their closest friends and family. Maya's parents and brother would attend, of course, along with Zoe, and a few close colleagues from both the Literacy Project and William's company. The event would be held in the garden of the mansion once Maya's gilded cage, now their shared home. As the day approached, Maya found herself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. When she had signed those marriage papers a year ago, she had believed she was sacrificing her chance at love to save her family. Instead, she had found love in the most unexpected place with a man who had been as trapped in his own way as she had been in hers. The night before the ceremony, Maya stood at the bedroom window, looking out at the garden where they would renew their vows the next day. William came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, only half joking. Maya leaned back against him, savoring his warmth. "Just the opposite. I was thinking how strange life is. The thing we most fear can sometimes lead us to exactly where we need to be." William turned her in his arms to face him. "I was so certain I knew what I wanted when I proposed our arrangement," he said, tracing her cheek with gentle fingers. "A beautiful, accomplished wife to improve my image. A convenient partnership that wouldn't demand emotional involvement." "And instead?" Maya prompted, smiling. "Instead, I got you. Stubborn, compassionate, unwilling to settle for the cold transaction I offered." William's eyes were soft with wonder. "You saw the man I could be before I glimpsed him myself." "We found each other," Maya corrected gently. "Both of us hidden behind walls we'd built for protection." As William held her close, Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude for the unexpected path that had led them here, from a reluctant bride and her impotent billionaire husband to two people who had discovered that love could flourish in the most unlikely soil, given patience, courage, and the willingness to grow. The morning of the vow renewal ceremony dawned clear and bright, the garden vibrant with late summer flowers. Maya stood before the mirror, in her bedroom, her old bedroom, as they had decided to spend the previous night apart in keeping with tradition, despite having shared a bed for months now. Her dress was nothing like the simple white one William's assistant had chosen for their first wedding. This one she had selected herself, a gorgeous creation in soft gold that complemented her dark skin and fell in elegant lines to the floor. Instead of the tight updo she'd worn at their first ceremony, her hair was styled in loose curls adorned with tiny white flowers. A knock at the door revealed Zoe, stunning in a deep burgundy bridesmaid's dress. "Look at you," she said, eyes widening as she took in Maya's appearance. "You're absolutely breathtaking." "I feel different," Maya admitted, Last time, I felt like I was going to my own funeral. Today, she smiled. Today I feel like I'm walking toward something wonderful. Zoe hugged her carefully, mindful of their dresses. I've never seen you so happy, Maya. I have to admit, I didn't think this was possible when you first married him. Neither did I, Maya laughed. But here we are. William's a different man now, Zoe acknowledged. The way he looks at you like you're the answer to every question he's ever had. It's kind of amazing to see. A second knock announced Maya's mother, elegant in a blue dress that Maya had helped her select. Her eyes filled with tears as she saw her daughter. "Oh, my baby," she whispered. "You look like a queen." Maya embraced her mother tightly. "Thank you for supporting me through all of this, Mom. I know you were scared for me at the beginning." "I was," her mother admitted. "But I've seen how he's changed, how you've changed together. Your father and I are so happy for you both." Downstairs, in the garden, a small gathering of 30 or so people waited. Unlike their first ceremony, this one would be warm, joyful, a true celebration. William had insisted on handling many of the arrangements himself, wanting to show Maya that this time every detail mattered to him. When it was time, Maya descended the stairs to find her father waiting for her, looking healthy and strong after more than a year of the treatments William had funded. Her brother Jamie stood beside him, handsome in his new suit, now a college graduate with a promising career ahead of him, another life, transformed by the arrangement that had begun so coldly but evolved into something beautiful. "Ready, sweetheart?" her father asked, offering his arm. Maya nodded, her heart full, more than ready. The garden path was lined with candles in glass hurricanes, leading to a simple white arch covered in flowers. As Maya began her walk toward him, the guests turned to watch, but she had eyes only for William. He stood tall and straight, healthier than he had been on their first wedding day, his face transformed by the emotions he no longer tried to hide. As Maya approached, she saw tears in his eyes, of vulnerability the old William would never have allowed anyone to witness. When she reached him, William took both her hands in his touch warm and steady. "You are so beautiful," he said softly, for her ears alone. The officiant, a kind-faced woman William had found who specialized in personalized ceremonies, welcomed everyone warmly. "We gathered today not to create a marriage, but to celebrate one that has already formed itself own, that began in unusual circumstances, but has grown into something extraordinary. William and Maya have asked us to witness, as they affirm the love that has transformed them both." Rather than traditional vows, William and Maya had written their own. William spoke first, his voice strong and clear despite the emotion evident in his face. "Maya, when you came into my life, I thought I was acquiring a wife. Instead, I found the person who would help me rediscover my humanity. You saw beyond the walls I had built, and refused to accept less than the man I could be. I promise to spend every day trying to be worthy of the love you've shown me. I promise to be your partner in all things, to respect your dreams as my own, to walk beside you rather than ahead or behind. I promise to never again mistake possession for love or control for caring. You are not mine, you are your own, but I am yours, completely and forever, if you'll have me." Tears streamed down Maya's face as she listened, knowing how much it cost this proud, private man to speak so openly of his transformation. When it was her turn, she had to take a deep breath to steady her voice. "William, our beginning was not a fairy tale. I came to you out of necessity, not love. But what grew between us is more meaningful than any storybook romance, because we built it together, brick by brick, choice by choice. You have shown me that people can change, that love can emerge in the most unlikely soil. I promise to continue walking this path with you, to challenge you when you need it, and support you always. I promise to trust the man you've become, while honoring the journey that brought you here. I choose you, William, not for my family. Not for security, but for the joy we've found together, and the future we'll build side by side. They exchanged rings, not the ostentatious diamond William had originally given Maya as part of their arrangement, but simple matching bands they had chosen together. As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, William drew Maya into a kiss that held nothing back, a public declaration of a love that had once seemed impossible. The celebration that followed was everything their first reception had not been: warm, joyful, filled with genuine connection rather than polite distance. William moved easily among Maya's family and friends, the stiffness that had once defined him all but gone. He laughed with her brother, discussed business ideas with her father, and even danced with her mother, showing a graceful side Maya hadn't known he possessed. "You've done the impossible," Zoe murmured to Maya as they watched William charming an elderly aunt. "You've melted the Ice King." Maya smiled, watching her husband with love and pride. "We did it together. He wanted to change, Zoe. He just needed someone to believe he could." As the evening progressed, William found Maya taking a moment alone on a garden bench, resting her feet after hours of dancing. He sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "Happy?" he asked simply. "Completely," she assured him, leaning against his shoulder. "It was perfect, William." William kissed the top of her head. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket and withdrawing an envelope. "A wedding gift of sorts." Maya opened it curiously to find legal documents inside. As she scanned them, her eyes widened in shock. "William." "The deed to a building in the Arts District," he confirmed. "I've had it renovated to create a studio and gallery space for your work and for other artists who haven't had the opportunities they deserve." Maya stared at him, speechless. This wasn't just a generous gift, it was a profound acknowledgement of her identity as an artist, something the old William would never have prioritized. "The literacy projects have shown me what your art can mean to others," William continued. "I want you to have a space where you can expand that vision, reach more people, support other artists like your grandmother who never got the recognition they deserved." Maya threw her arms around him, too moved for words. William held her close, understanding what this meant to her without needing her to explain. When she could finally speak, Maya looked up at him with tears shining in her eyes. "Thank you for seeing me of me, not just the parts that were useful to you." "I see you," William said softly, "and I love every part." As the celebration continued around them, Maya reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, she had signed a marriage contract, believing she was sacrificing her chance at love to save her family. Instead, she had found love in the most unexpected place with a man who had been as imprisoned by his past and his fears as she had felt in those early days of their arrangement. They had both been transformed by the unlikely bond that had formed between them. William had rediscovered the humanity he had buried beneath decades of emotional armor. Maya had found a strength and purpose she hadn't known she possessed. Together, they had created something neither could have imagined when they first met: a genuine partnership based on mutual respect, understanding, and deep, abiding love. As William led her back to join their guests for the final dance of the evening, Maya felt a profound sense of gratitude. Their story had not begun as a romance. It had begun as a transaction, a cold business arrangement between desperate parties. But life, she had learned, didn't always follow the expected path. Sometimes the harshest beginnings led to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes the person who seemed most unlikely to touch your heart was precisely the one destined to transform it forever. When William took her in his arms for their last dance, holding her as if she were precious beyond measure, Maya knew with absolute certainty that their unlikely love story was only just beginning. They had come full circle from a marriage of convenience to a union of heartsand. The journey ahead, with all its unpredictable twists and turns, was one they would navigate together, stronger for having found each other in the most unexpected way.